Yo, what's going on, family? What's going on? What's going on? Listen, I want to welcome y'all to another episode of Friday Night Live with me, Pastor Frank. What's going on, Red? Man, Red, wait till I fill y'all in a minute. Do me a favor as y'all coming in. Make sure y'all like, make sure y'all tag, and make sure y'all share this with some folks, especially on the night. I'm doing the same thing even now. Make sure y'all share this with somebody. Listen, y'all. I'm so excited for tonight. As always, I'm always excited. What's up, Nidra? It's Friday. We made it, y'all. We made it to yet another week. As always, listen, I'm always excited whenever you all are with me. I know you could have been anywhere in the world, but you here with me. Listen, y'all, tonight, as promised, we had some issues last week. I'm getting ready to fill y'all in on all the details, but I need y'all to do me a favor. I need y'all to share this message with as many people as possible, like right now. Like, don't wait and do it. Like, copy the link, send it to some people right now. I am convinced that the enemy does not want people to hear this message. I mean, to me, it's just a regular message, something that God gave me. But when I tell you all, I have never faced this much opposition as it pertains to trying to get a message out, right? And so, whenever I come to the point where I recognize, whenever I begin to face a lot of opposition, that must mean that I'm on the right track, right? Because the devil ain't gonna mess with nobody. If you ain't in the way, if you ain't causing no issues for him, he ain't worried about you, right? But when you about your business, when we're about our Father's business, the devil is mad, and so I don't know who it is that's supposed to hear this message, whether it's one person, two people, whoever it is. But what I know is he does not want y'all to hear tonight's message. And so I need y'all to do me a favor. Go ahead and share it. Go ahead and tag some folks. I don't know if we can tag folks on YouTube, but listen, go copy the link, post it on your Facebook page. Everybody needs to be logged in and hearing this message on tonight. As tonight, we're gonna try it again, and we'll be talking about healed versus isolated. Healed versus isolated. But before we go into that, y'all, listen. When I need you read, I need y'all to hear me. When I tell y'all, so last Friday, right after going live, the computer, brand new computer, crashed, right? And it was crazy because I was already logged into the studio, an hour beforehand, right? Making sure everything was working the way it's supposed to work, so that I can go ahead and do what God has set for me to do. And as you all know, 15 minutes after going live, right? Just as I was really getting ready to jump into this thing, boom, the whole computer just crashed. Brand new computer, you all. No more than 30 days old. The computer crashes. It still crashed to this day. So I'm using a different computer. Watch this. 2 days later, I'm on my way. What's up, Nicole? 2 days later, right? I'm coming from as a matter of fact, I had just left the airport, and I dropped my sister off, and I was on my way to church. While I'm on my way to church, and remember, Sunday it rained a little bit, y'all. So on my way, and it was a little slippery out. I will admit it was a little slippery, but so I'm on the expressway, and I'm driving on my way to church. Watch this. I see a car getting on the expressway, getting ready to merge, right? All of a sudden, the car loses control, just starts spinning around. So the car directly in front of me is able to stop, but he almost hits that car, obviously, which would have caused a chain reaction. But thank God that even I was able to swerve to the side, and literally the entire expressway was at a standstill because the car that just did a 360 on the expressway, I just knew that the car was going to get hit by someone else or maybe flip over. The car never flipped over. It just spun around in a circle until it stopped, and it was blocking the middle of the expressway, right? Took to the point that I was able to take my phone out and take a picture because I'm like, ain't nobody gonna believe what just happened at the car. I mean, literally, I don't know if they hit an icy pack. I didn't see no ice, but the car spins around, right? So I'm like, could it be a coincidence? Even though I don't believe in coincidence, that was just it was just something that I noticed. It was very, very, very weird. I'll say it like that. 2 days after that, I'm on my way to work. And as I'm on my way to work, there was a car that was in front of me at a certain point in time, and it was driving really slow. Now, mind you, I like to get to work at a certain time to the point that even if I'm late, I'm not late, right? I'm on time because I get to work early, but there's a certain time that I like to get to work. And this car, I couldn't get around the car. They was just driving so slow. And I started getting an attitude like, man, these folks about to make me miss my window the time I'm trying to get to work. Lo and behold, once I was finally able to get around that car, I was coming up to the next intersection. Just before I get to that intersection, bam! Another vehicle that was in front of me is coming through the intersection, and they get hit by another car, knocking both cars all across the place. And I said, okay, clearly God had his hand even in this situation because the car that was annoying me was actually stopping me because if that car had not been in my way, blocking me from going where I needed to go, guess what, y'all? I would have been probably the one going through that intersection because I would have been driving faster, trying to get to work at the time that I like to get to work. I'd have been coming through that intersection, and that might have been me in that accident. So I said, okay, clearly, God had his hand on me yet again. But then I said, that devil sure is busy. Like, I ain't trying to bother nobody. I'm just trying to be about my father's business and do what I need to do. So now, and so as I started meditating and praying on not only just what I had seen, but even through the rest of the week, I'm like, okay, so clearly, whatever I got going on, the devil ain't happy, right? He big mad, and so he trying to do whatever he can to take me out, whether it's to discourage me, whether it's to get me to be afraid. It ain't gonna work. It ain't happening. As a matter of fact, I'm a complete opposite. When I see stuff like that, I go even harder. Now, now watch this. Today, 3 minutes before I was getting ready to go live, boom, internet goes out for no reason at all. As a matter of fact, my internet is still out right now. My modem is flashing. I'm using a hotspot on my phone because I started praying and I said, "No." I said, "God, I already know that this clearly this word that you had is meant to go forth, and your word always does what it's meant to do. And I'm gonna make sure that I do my part to make sure that I'm able to get this message out to whomever needs to hear it because." Whatever the message is, I mean, I know what the message is, but whoever needs to hear this, I don't know who it is. Whoever needs to hear this message, I'm like, clearly it's gonna change somebody's life. And so, by any means necessary, I'm gonna do whatever I gotta do. So right now, as we're going live, I'm streaming from the hotspot on my phone, which I also got to use my phone for my notes. But I don't know about y'all, but I'm so excited. I'm so grateful. And I know that the devil is going to be big mad because at the end of the day, the goal for Friday Night Live is to help us to dream unfiltered. So many of us have been through so many experiences and negative things in our lives. And we have a lot of baggage, a lot of stuff that's been buried underneath. But at the end of the day, I know that we're on our way to better and brighter days. But tonight, you all, as promised, we're going to pick it back up. Tonight, we're talking about healed versus delivered, right? Or should I say isolated? Healed versus isolated, right? So we started out last week, for those of you who may have been on in the beginning, we started talking about what is isolation, right? What does it mean to be isolated? And by definition, isolated simply means, right? It simply means to become detached or disconnected from something else, right? So in other words, people who are in isolation, they're usually detached from other people, or people who like to detach, or they live in isolation. They disconnect from society, right? They end up living in a space where they're completely disconnected from a lot of times from reality, right? And the emphasis for isolation is the disconnection, right? The emphasis is the detachment, right? That's what the emphasis of isolation is. But we were getting to the place of okay, figuring out, so what's the difference between be healing or a process of healing versus isolation? And so we were starting to get to last week was the fact that there are some elements of healing, the healing process that appears like it is isolation, but there is a big difference, and the difference is what the emphasis is. Again, remember, isolation, the emphasis is on disconnecting or detaching from everything else. Whereas a process of healing is completely different. Because guess what? The process of healing does allow us, watch this, it allows us to make time, and that's the key. It allows us to make time, watch this, to evaluate and reflect. If somebody's taking notes, or if you somebody do me a favor, write it down and type it in the chat for me. Healing gives us, it emphasizes taking time or making time to evaluate and reflect. So, what is it that we're supposed to be evaluating and reflecting on? When we are in a process of healing, what we're doing is making time to evaluate and reflect on, watch this, our circumstances and our connections. I hope y'all heard me. When we're in healing, what we're doing in a process of healing, what we're doing is we're making time. Why do we make time? Because that means there's a beginning and there's an end. There's not just a limitless, endless time frame. That means there is a specific time frame of this process. And part of that process is we make time to evaluate and reflect on our circumstances. That means whatever your condition is, whatever your situation is, we're making time to evaluate, where am I, right? How are things going? Are things going well, right? And then we evaluate to see what is the status of where we are. Are we making the progress that we thought we would make, or are we not? Are we going backwards, right? But then we also we also take the time to evaluate and reflect on our connections, right? Because as we're trying to grow, as we're progressing on our journey, the other thing is, who are we connected to? Sometimes who we're connected to can hinder our process of healing. There's some of us that may be connected to the wrong people. And guess what? It don't mean that they're bad people. It could just be that the connection that you were supposed to have is no longer valid. Maybe you were only supposed to be connected with them for a season. Right? Maybe God was able to use them for a particular season, but now there is at the place where maybe they are no longer helping you in your healing process. So when we are healing, it's not a matter of we're disconnecting with the intention of simply of isolating and just disconnecting and detaching. What we're doing is we're stepping back so that we can evaluate and then reflect. Right? Maybe when we reflect, maybe we notice that there's some connections that we don't have that we need. It goes both ways. Everybody's not bad, but guess what? Everybody's not good. Right? But we got to remember, what's the difference? The difference is isolation puts emphasis on detaching. And it's important for us to understand the difference for you all, because when we are intentionally engaging in a healthy process of healing, especially now that we're on our way to trying to have and enjoy better days, we all need to make sure that we don't fall into the isolation trap. Isolation trap, what's that? See, here's the thing. When we isolate ourselves while we're in a process of healing, we run the risk of, watch this, relapsing, whether it's from being bored, whether it's because we're isolated and we're by ourselves, it's easy for us to slip into depression, or we end up making poor choices because we're lonely. Because watch this. what we end up doing is, instead of managing the light that God gave us, because we've been hurt, because someone did us wrong, and so we detach and we disconnect, we end up avoiding a lot of the things that we need to face. We avoid a lot of the things that bring up bad memories. The isolation trap. I don't need nobody. I can do it all by myself. No, you can't. Yes, there are some things you got to do on your own, but we were not designed. I'm going to talk about it a little bit more, but we were not designed to do life by ourselves. We were designed to do life in community. But here's the thing, it's easier to fall into isolation as opposed to going through a process of healing. Why? It's easy to just go in the house and close the door and don't call nobody. Don't talk to nobody. It's easier to do that. Because then you ain't got to deal with them crazy folks. Right? But here's the danger in that. The danger with isolation is that becomes watch this. It becomes a unhealthy coping mechanism that allows us or causes us to get stuck to the point. Woo, it causes us to get stuck to the point that it makes it harder for us to continue or even go through a process of healing. Remember, the emphasis for the healing process is to evaluate and reflect on our circumstances and our connections for the purpose of facilitating a healthy recovery. And part of a healthy recovery also includes learning healthy coping skills, which many of us were not taught. Most of us were probably taught unhealthy coping skills. Hmm. There's a study that was done by the National Institute of Health, and this survey, their research showed a negative impact on the mental well-being and behavior, which also included higher scores. Watch this, for depression, anxiety, and anger with their patients who they isolated. Why? Because here's the thing, you all. The reality is, it's not possible for any of us to learn healthy coping skills when we're in isolation. Meaning, you can't learn how to cope with with reality without being in reality. We can't cope we don't learn how to cope with living in a world full of different all types of people without being in the world with all types of people. I know these people crazy. I know it. But you crazy too. Me too. But it's just the reality. We cannot learn healthy coping skills to deal with things that we are not connected to. Now watch this. Even when we look at it from a spiritual perspective. Watch this. If you're taking notes, the Bible even warns us in Proverbs chapter 18, verse 1. It says that whoever isolates himself seeks his own desire. He breaks out against all sound judgment. What is that saying? Meaning, people who isolate themselves are actually in pursuit of their own selfish desires. And as a result of being in pursuit of your own healthy desires, what happens is we end up putting ourselves in a position where we're just detached or disconnected from the opportunity that God gives us to receive sound advice. How you gonna get sound advice if you isolated? Because guess what? When we're isolated, the only voice we hear is our own. And the more we hear our own voice, the more we begin to believe our own hype. And we believe the craziness and foolishness that we tell ourselves. So when God finally sends somebody to tell you the truth, you confused because you've been used to hearing your own voice. Why? Because you've been isolated. I've said it before, you all, and I can't stress it enough. And I hope y'all hearing me. Anything that God is going to do, here, let me make it clear. I'm talking to you right there, the person that's watching me right now. Anything that God is going to do for you, He's going to do it through other people. Well, I don't like people. Well, guess what? God is going to use people to speak to you. God is going to use people to bless you. Any and everything that God is going to do for you is going to come through other people. So guess what? If you're in isolation, you can't hear what else God might be saying for you, to you. If you're in isolation, that means there's some blessings you're not going to be able to get because you're not connected, because you're detached. I wonder, you all, for some of us who seem like we've been struggling for a long time, could it be because A, we've been connected to the wrong people, and maybe we have been disconnected and detached from the right people? Here's the thing, you all. God did not plan for us to live our lives like an island. What do I mean by that? Meaning we're not supposed to be all on our own. We're not supposed to be an island to ourselves, right? God designed, He planned for us to live in community with others. That's also another reason that He gave us a roadmap called the Bible that a lot of us don't read. He gave us scriptures like 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 and chapter 5 verse 14, which says, "And we urge you, brothers and sisters, warn those who are idle and disruptive." Y'all heard me right. "And we urge you, brothers and sisters, warn those who are idle," meaning they ain't doing nothing, or they're disruptive. It says also encourage the disheartened. That means encourage the people who maybe they're weak of heart. They can't take no more. They're ready to give up. Encourage them. But then it also goes on and it says help the weak. Some of us, we get weary. The Bible says don't get weary in well doing. But guess what? That means sometimes we may need some help. We may need some pick me up. It goes on and says, be patient with everyone. That means there's some things that a lot of people don't know. Who gonna teach them? Somebody got to be patient enough to teach them. But watch this. You don't get none of that if you're in isolation. How can somebody help you if you're in isolation? How can someone encourage you if you're in isolation? How can somebody pick you up when you fall down and you weak if you're in isolation? How can somebody teach you the things that you don't know that you need to know if you're in isolation? But watch this. Notice how even scripture is confirming the importance of something we talked about on the last episode, which is having a healthy accountability circle. Remember, we talked about that. We need a healthy accountability circle. How you gonna have a healthy accountability? How you gonna have an accountability circle and all of you isolated? Again, that means you're disconnected or detached if you're isolated. But guess what? When you're going through a process of healing, right, you're evaluating who's in my circle, who's not, who needs to be moved around, who doesn't, whose season is up, whose season is not. Am I in the right place? Am I not? Because guess what? Some of us, we may not know whether or not we're in the right place or not. But God may give confirmation to the people through other people that's connected to you in your circle. But if you're isolated, how can you get the encouragement? But here's the thing, you all. God knew that all of us was going to need help at some point in time to make the right decision. He knew that all of us was going to need encouragement at some point in time when we get weak. He knew that all of us was going to make, watch this, all of us were going to make bad decisions at some point in time. And we was going to need somebody to say, hey, you out of order, you out of pocket. But then also come alongside and encourage us to do better. And if they have the knowledge, they may even give us the knowledge to get and equip us to do better. But again, you can't do that if you isolate it. Somebody do me a favor, type it in the comments. The right circle matters. The right circle matters. So now, now that we know the difference between healing and isolation, as we're going into this particular weekend, I was going to say I encourage. For some of us, I'm going to encourage you. But then there's some others. I want to challenge you. I want to challenge you to make some time for what? To evaluate and reflect on your current circumstances as well as your connections. Because at the end of the day, we are, remember we mentioned it the other episode. There's going to come a point in time that God is going to hold all of us accountable for what we did with the life that he gave us. But watch this. But God loves us enough to make sure that we have everything we need. We just got to make sure we connect to the right things. So this weekend, I want us to take some time. Even I know it's the Christmas season, but guess what? It's only a few days left in this year. Many of us, we hoping that next year is better than this year, right? That's why we're on this road to better days. So while we're on this road, take some time, evaluate and reflect on your current circumstances and connections so that we can begin to make, watch this, healthy and informed decisions or even changes. Even if some of those decisions may be out of our comfort zone. Because at the end of the day, you all, our goal is to facilitate a healthy healing and recovery process. And I believe when we do that, when we not isolate, but when we make time to evaluate and reflect, I believe when we do that, not only will God strengthen us, he also will begin to strengthen some of the connections that we're lacking. He may begin to strengthen some of the relationships that God really meant for us, right? But because many of us are poor in managing healthy relationships, because we haven't done the work, I believe once we do our part, as always, God will always do his part. And then we will continue to be on that journey to better days and living life more abundantly. Well, listen, that's all I got for y'all on tonight. As always, I appreciate y'all for tuning in. I'm so excited. Don't forget to share this with somebody, even on the replay. When you watch this, share this with somebody else. But listen, I can't wait till we get together next week. Or as next week, we'll be talking about hidden struggles. I can't wait. Until next week, y'all, remember, dreams plant the seeds for the future, and your future is definitely bright. Listen, I love y'all. There's nothing you can do about it. Have a great weekend. Do the work, y'all. And I'll see y'all next week. Love y'all. Peace out.